Picture this. You're born into a world where your playground is a battlefield, your teachers are warriors, and your homework is learning how to raid and pillage. Welcome to Björn Ironside's childhood. Beneath a sky torn by blood and frost, a warrior's shadow cleaves the mist. Longships hunger for the world, their prows slicing seas like knives through silk. Swords scream of glory, of ruin, empires kneel before his name. He is Björn Ironside, the Viking who shattered empires. Welcome to a special edition of Legends of History, brought to you by the Legacy of History channel, where the past's unsung giants rise to roar again. The year is 835 AD. On Sweden's storm-scarred shores, a boy is born to pure legend. Björn, son of Ragnar Lothbrok and the mysterious Aslog, enters a world of ice and fire, where survival isn't guaranteed and glory must be earned in blood. Think about that for a second. While other kids today worry about homework, Björn was learning to swing an axe. His mother, Aslaug, according to the ancient sagas, descended from dragon slayers, her blood kissed by the gods themselves. His father, Ragnar, was already carving his name across distant lands, a king whose very mention made enemies tremble. But here's what makes Björn's story so incredible. He didn't just ride on his father's reputation. He became something even more terrifying. In the frozen halls where Odin's ravens perched like dark omens, Viking boys trained on earth so cold their breath turned to clouds with every swing of their practice swords. Björn, fierce-eyed even as a child, sparred with his legendary brothers. Ivar the Boneless, cunning and cruel as a serpent. Sigvitserk, swift as lightning. Sigurd, snake in the eye, marked by fate itself. Björn's clashes with Ivar forged his ruthless cunning, each brotherly rivalry sharpening his killer instinct. By 14, Björn could wield a full-sized blade. By 16, he was dreaming of seas uncharted, of lands unconquered, of empires yet to be shattered. The horizon wasn't just calling to him, it was roaring. Unlike Frankish princes cloistered in comfortable courts or Arab princes studying mathematics in Baghdad, Björn's education was the sea itself, his lessons carved in blood and oak. His school was the longship, his textbooks were the stars, and his final exams were life-or-death raids against seasoned warriors. Archaeological finds from ancient Burkar reveal warrior graves filled with axes and shield bosses, the very tools that shaped Björn's youth. Their iron whispers of a world where honor outweighed life, where dying gloriously was better than living in shame. This wasn't just childhood, this was forging a weapon that would terrorize 3 continents. How do you create the perfect Viking warrior? Take 1 part brutal training, 2 parts pagan mysticism, and 3 parts absolute fearlessness. Mix thoroughly with ice-cold seawater and Nordic storms. Viking life isn't just hard, it's designed to create superhumans. Picture longships carved from oak, gliding through shallow rivers like deadly phantoms, their sails catching Thor's own thunder. Great halls echo with skalds chanting tales of Valhalla's eternal feast, where fallen warriors drink mead with the gods. The pagan gods weren't just stories to Björn. Odin, Thor, and Freya were real forces guarding Viking souls, demanding courage in exchange for their protection. Björn learned to read the stars like a GPS system, to understand tides better than modern sailors, and to honor blood oaths more sacred than any legal contract. His world operated on 3 simple principles: clan, honor, and war. In bustling markets like those at Birka, Norse culture thrived beyond just raiding. Björn attended Thing assemblies where jarls settled disputes under Odin's watchful eye, learning that Vikings weren't just brutal warriors but also sophisticated lawmakers. But don't mistake sophistication for softness. While Chinese naval fleets were bound by imperial edicts and bureaucratic red tape, Björn's longships answered only to courage and the promise of gold. His world forged rune stones to bind warriors with oaths stronger than steel, creating a military culture that prized loyalty above life itself. Frankish scribes, trembling in their monasteries, called him Berno in their terrified chronicles. The sagas gave him a better name, Ironside, meaning no blade could break his will, no enemy could bend his spirit. History tried to blur the man, but Bjorn was no shadow. He was a tempest with a human face. Tell me in the comments, would you have survived Viking training? At 17, most teenagers are worried about college applications. Bjorn was learning to burn down Paris. At 17, Björn sails with Ragnar into the pages of history. In 845, father and son strike at the heart of the Frankish Empire. Viking sails choke the Seine River like a plague of Black Death. Paris, the jewel of Francia, trembles behind its walls as Ragnar unveils his masterpiece of military deception. The plan? Psychological warfare at its most brutal. Ragnar feigns retreat, lets the Frankish defenders think they've won, then launches devastating night assaults when the enemy least expects it. Charles the Bald, king of the Franks and supposedly one of Europe's most powerful rulers, finds himself so desperate that he pays 7,000 pounds of silver just to make the Vikings go away. 7,000 pounds of silver. That's like paying modern-day billions in ransom. Bjorn watches, learns, and absorbs every detail. He sees how his father's mind works, how cunning trumps brute force, how the sea becomes both shield and spear. This isn't just a raid, it's a masterclass in terror. But Bjorn doesn't want to live in his father's shadow forever. He hungers for his own saga. In 856, Bjorn forges his own path of destruction. With his kinsman Hastin, he ravages West Francia like a force of nature. Rouen burns. Monasteries are gutted. Towns bleed dry. Paris trembles again, and Charles the Bald opens his treasury once more. Here's what made Björn truly dangerous. He wasn't just a raider, he was a strategist. His longships, with their shallow drafts, could thread through rivers where heavy Frankish galleys would run aground. He struck at dawn when defenders were barely awake, and vanished by dusk like a nightmare that might not have been real. Gold, slaves, and precious relics filled his holds. But Bjorn studied his prey like a scientist. He mapped forts, catalogued fears, memorized every river and escape route. He wasn't a wolf in sheep's clothing, he was a wolf in the fog, and you never saw him coming until it was too late. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle records how these raids sent shockwaves across Europe. In Wessex, a young prince named Alfred was studying Viking tactics, already planning the navy that would one day challenge Norse supremacy. But that day was still far off. For now, the seas belonged to Bjorn. Has anyone ever been crazy enough to take Viking longships into the Mediterranean? Most Vikings raided rivers and coasts. Bjorn decided to terrorize an entire sea that had never seen Nordic sails. In 859, Bjorn's legend explodes across 3 continents. Picture this: 62 longships, filled with the most hardened Viking warriors in existence, approaching the Strait of Gibraltar. For 1,000 years, no northern European had dared bring a war fleet into the Mediterranean. The very idea was insane. Bjorn did it anyway. The Mediterranean burns under Nordic fury. Muslim chroniclers weep as Seville's great mosques are plundered and scorched. Algeciras crumbles under Viking axes. North African ports that had never seen blonde-bearded raiders suddenly find their harbors full of dragon-prowed ships. But here's what makes this campaign absolutely legendary. Bjorn didn't care about religion or politics. He was an equal opportunity destroyer. Muslim, Christian, it didn't matter. His heart was set on gold, not creeds. Some later tales claim he converted to Islam, but that's complete nonsense. Bjorn's only god was victory, his only religion was the sword. Pisa's churches yield their riches to Viking steel, but the crown jewel of this campaign happens at Luna, where Bjorn pulls off perhaps the greatest military deception in history. Are you ready for this? Because this story is absolutely wild. Bjorn wants to sack Rome itself, but mistakes the coastal city of Luna for the Eternal City. When Luna's defenders refuse him entry, does he besiege the walls like any normal Viking? Not even close. Bjorn feigns his own death and begs for Christian burial inside the city walls. Picture the scene. This supposedly dead Viking chieftain, lying peacefully in his funeral bier, being carried through Luna's gates by grieving warriors who just want to bury their beloved leader. The gates swing wide open. The entire city turns out for this touching funeral. Then Bjorn springs from his coffin, sword blazing like lightning, and Luna becomes a slaughterhouse. The Annales Bertiniani records Luna's fall as pure genius. This isn't just military strategy. This is Odin's own trickery made flesh. It's psychological warfare so brilliant that people are still talking about it over 1,000 years later. But even legends have limits. Storms claim ships. Andalusian fire catapults, shooting flaming pitch that turns Viking vessels into floating infernos, destroy half his fleet. The Mediterranean fights back, with Muslim naval technology that even Vikings respect. Bjorn sails north, scarred, but absolutely iron-willed. His fleet is bloodied, but his reputation is immortal. Today, archaeologists have found the burnt foundations of Seville's mosques, physical evidence of Bjorn's fires. Italian records catalogue the sacred reliquaries stolen from Pisa's churches. This wasn't legend. This actually happened. Why did Björn terrify empires? While others relied on brute force, Björn turned warfare into an art form. Björn's mind was deadlier than his blade. Let's talk about psychological warfare. At Luna, Björn turned Christian mercy into military defeat, his fake death breaking pious hearts and opening impregnable gates. This wasn't luck, this was genius. His longships operated like modern wolf packs, striking multiple coasts simultaneously, sowing panic across entire regions. Think about the terror this created. Imagine if raiders could hit New York, Boston, and Philadelphia all at the same time, then vanish before any defense could respond. That's exactly what Bjorn did to medieval youth. He would raid small villages to lure armies into scattering their forces, then crush the scattered units with his concentrated main force. Smoke signals and horn blasts coordinated his fleet with military precision that would impress modern naval commanders. Bjorn mastered tides, winds, and shoals better than sailors who had spent their entire lives on those waters. He could outrun pursuing fleets, navigate in storms that left enemies blind, and appear in places where ships weren't supposed to be able to go. His shield walls, bristling with iron spearheads, could shatter the finest cavalry charges in Europe. No Viking had ever sailed so far, struck so fiercely, or inspired so much terror. Archaeological evidence from Birka reveals weapon caches that show how sophisticated Viking military technology really was. These weren't crude barbarian tools. These were precision instruments of war, designed by master craftsmen for professional soldiers. Unlike Chinese Tang dynasty admirals, who were constrained by bureaucracy and imperial politics, Bjorn's autonomy gave him speed and flexibility that no traditional military could match. His horn signals could coordinate fleet movements faster than any messenger could carry orders. But his greatest weapon wasn't steel. It was fear. Bjorn understood that shattering enemy morale was more effective than shattering enemy armies. A terrified enemy makes mistakes, abandons strong positions, and often defeats itself before the first sword is drawn. What do you think made Bjorn so successful? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. How do you go from raider to king? Asked Björn Ironside. Most Vikings died young and violent. Bjorn built a dynasty that lasted 2 centuries. In 862, Bjorn's longships haunt new waters. He raids Frisia and Ireland, his dragon-prowed vessels appearing like specters off Dutch coasts and Irish shores. Utrecht's markets are looted clean. Dublin's harbors echo with the sound of Viking war horns. Chronicles across northern Europe record the terror of these raids, though Bjorn's exact role sometimes blurs in the competing accounts. He winters in the Low Countries, His longships a constant threat that keeps entire regions on edge. But by 867, something changes. Bjorn returns to Sweden not as a raider, but as a king. The ancient sources crown him ruler and founder of the Munso dynasty. Today, archaeologists have found his burial mound on Munso Island, its runestones bearing his name in letters carved by master craftsmen. This isn't legend, this is archaeological fact. But here's what makes Bjorn's legacy truly extraordinary. His impact lasted centuries. He sired kings like Eirikre and Refill, whose bloodline held power until 1060. Their reigns shaped all of Scandinavia, their laws echoing Bjorn's iron will across generations. We're talking about a dynasty that outlasted the Byzantine Empire's golden age. Bjorn's raids literally redrew the map of Europe. Viking ambitions surged in his wake. Normandy rose to power. Sicily fell to Norse blades. Monasteries across the continent fortified their walls against the heathen tide that Bjorn had unleashed. Kings scrambled to forge navies, ports bristled with defensive fleets, and the entire structure of medieval Europe changed in response to Viking power. But the changes went deeper than just military. Trade exploded along routes that Bjorn had carved with his sword. Viking trading networks linked Dublin to Byzantium, carrying Muslim silver coins north and Nordic amber south. The Danelaw's legal traditions, blending Norse and Anglo-Saxon justice, can trace their roots back to Bjorn's conquests. Yet triumph always comes with a price. Seville's survivors fled their burning city, their tales of terror carved in ash and memory. Pisa's churches smoldered for days, priceless relics lost forever. French coastal villages were trampled into dust, their fields soaked with blood. Chroniclers wailed about thousands dead, though exact numbers blur across the centuries. Bjorn killed for glory and survival, not cruelty, but the cost was grim. Entire coastal cultures withered under Viking pressure. Some regions never fully recovered. Modern excavations in Dublin reveal Viking docks with preserved oak keels, confirming Bjorn's Irish reach. York's legal codes show how Norse law blended with local traditions. Unlike Harald Fairhair's unification of Norway, Bjorn's legacy was conquest and cultural fusion, not political consolidation. His trade routes rivaled anything the Islamic world could offer, carrying Byzantine silk to Scandinavian markets and connecting the Arctic to Africa. Bjorn's raids forced medieval Europe to adapt, evolving into a world of fortified ports, professional navies, and international trade networks that would eventually lead to the age of exploration. Even the greatest heroes sometimes get forgotten by the very history they helped create. Here's the tragic irony of Björn Ironside. He shaped the world, but the world forgot his name. The sagas remember him, but Frankish scribes blur his identity, calling him simply Berno, like he was just another raider. Ragnar's legend, swollen by generations of storytellers, overshadowed his son's real achievements. By 876, Bjorn dies. Maybe in Frisia's muddy battlefields, maybe peacefully on Munso's windswept cliffs, no chronicler bothered to record his final moment. His burial mound stands silent, its ancient runes weathered by time and neglect. Europe remembered the Viking swarm, but forgot the brilliant mind that led it. Myths of heathen savages buried the truth about his strategic genius, his iron determination, his cultural impact. Bjorn Ironside, who sailed beyond the edge of the known world, simply faded into historical twilight. But stand on Munso's cliffs today. Feel the sea's cold pulse against the rocks. Hear the waves' mournful song echoing across centuries. Bjorn's presence still haunts those waters. He was no savage, no mindless plunderer driven only by greed. He was a strategic mind that shattered empires, an iron-willed soul that defied gods and kings alike. His dynasty endured for centuries. His raids remade the medieval world. His trade routes connected continents. Yet memory is fragile. It betrays the bold and forgets the iron-willed. The Heimskringla traces Munso's royal line all the way to 1060, their runestones still echoing with Bjorn's blood. His raids inspired the Norse sagas that shaped Icelandic literature. Across Eurasia, Rus traders carried his legacy to Byzantium, their silver coins fueling Viking prosperity. His shadow lingers in Normandy's dukes, in the Danelaw's legal codes, in every longship that ever carved a wake across northern seas. Björn Ironside lives in every tale of impossible odds overcome, every story of courage against empires, every legend of the lone warrior who changed the world. Did Björn's saga set your soul on fire? Smash that like button and let us know which legendary Viking you want to see next. Subscribe to Legends of History for more epic tales of warriors who shaped the world. What spark of Björn's iron will burns in you? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And remember, these are the stories the world forgot, but time never will. The stories that remind us that one person, armed with courage and determination, can literally change the course of history. Until next time, dear viewers, may you sail with the wind at your back and iron in your soul. From the longships of legend to the modern world, this is Legends of History, keeping the past alive for the future.